Hi guys, Tracy here, and today I'm scrapbooking using the brand new Freckled Fawn mixed media kit. This is a kit that's been in the works for a while, so I'm so excited to finally get to play with it. I'm going to start this video by making a couple of embellishments using some items from the kit, and then I'm going to go ahead and make a layout. So the Freckled Fawn Mixed Media Kit comes with all of the goodies that you see on my desk right here, including this cute little scallop stamp, a white jelly roll pen, which is my favorite kind of gel pen, this Heidi Swap metallic gold texture paste, a gelato in passion fruit, colorings mist in the color of Mandarin Mai Tai, these really cute vellum stickers, there are 2 sheets of them, and then 2 sheets each of these washi strips. The star of the show, in my opinion, is this beautiful floral tissue paper that is 12 by 12, and you get 2 sheets of it, and then that really lovely stencil with the bows, and that's a 6 by 6 stencil. So I am starting with 1 piece of the tissue paper, and I'm actually getting ready here to make several different embellishments, only one of which I'm going to use on today's project. So I am cutting a whole bunch of strips here, but the strips that I'm going to use for today's project are 1 by 1. So not 1 by 1, 1 by 12, I'm sorry. So I cut some 2-inch strips, some 1.5-inch strips, and I'm crinkling up the 2 and 1.5-inch strips because they're for a different project that I will show you in another video. I'm just crinkling them up to make them wrinkly, and I will use them for something else. You'll get a bit of a sneak peek. So I did make a ruffle out of them, and you can see that in an upcoming video of mine. And now what I'm doing with the ones that I didn't crinkle, and this is the 2 strips that I cut at 1 inch wide by the full 12 inches long, I am using my Martha Stewart scoreboard to score this strip at every 1/2 inch mark. So at half, at 1, at 1.5, at 2, and then I flipped it over and I scored it on the opposite side every half, but on the in-betweens, so at the 1/4 and 1.25 and so on. And now I am just fan folding this, so just back and forth, and because I scored it 2 different ways, it makes it really, really easy to fan fold this strip of paper. Now, I am purposely, I'm not being too careful about this. So what we're doing is we're making one of those rosette flowers. And so I'm just going to do the exact same thing with the second piece of paper. I'm zoomed in a little bit more, so you'll get to see a little bit better what it is that I'm doing. So now I'm going on those 1/4 marks instead of on the 1/2 marks and scoring it all over again. So that every second score is going the opposite direction, and that will just make it easy for me to fold it back and forth into a little teeny weeny mini fan shape. And like I said, I'm being fairly messy about it because my end result flower or rosette will be, or pinwheel sometimes they're called, it's going to be messy anyways, so there's no point in spending a whole lot of effort in making this step really perfect when what I'm going to do is make it really crumpled up anyways. So I just folded it as quickly as I could, and now I'm going to cut some circles to use as both the base and as the topper to these rosettes. So I picked just from my scrap paper, I picked a orange color of pattern paper that coordinates with the orange in the printed tissue. And I also grabbed some black and white pattern paper. I think that is from the Scraptastic Kit Club. And just because black and white goes with anything, so I thought that would make a nice neutral. And I have 2 Lawn Fawn dies here. I have a scalloped circle die, and then I have a stitched circle die. And just for the fun of it, just to bring a splash of a different color in, I decided to do a blue circle as well. And that was just from the flip side of that orange pattern paper. I noticed that it had a pretty blue, so I thought I would put that there as an option. So now I have more circles than I really need, but that's okay. I wanted to have some options. And now I just really quickly with a punch, punched some circles that will serve as my base. And so now what I want to do is glue together these two strips of paper so that I have one big long one. And when you glue them together, you want to glue them so that you're going along with the up and down pattern of folding in the paper, so that you have basically one continuous strip of mountains and valleys, and you don't have like two valleys together or whatnot. I'm not sure how to explain that, so I've just slowed this down so that you can see what I mean. I'm basically going to nest the one end. This is the same piece of paper, it just loops all the way around. And I'm taking one end and nesting it over the other end so that I have one continuous loop. That I don't want to do that. I want to do that. There you go. So I'm going to, I'm just demonstrating it multiple times just in case I had trouble explaining it. So I'm just going to be very conservative with my glue here, because hot glue does tend to dry a little lumpy, and I want these two pieces of paper to nest together quite nicely. So I'm just putting a very narrow strip of hot glue down one end and then down the other end. And you could use some sticky strip here or terrifically tacky tape or something like that. Basically, you want a glue that you're not going to have to wait for it to dry. You want something that's pretty instant, and that's why I chose hot glue. You could also use, like I said, that terrifically tacky stuff, the stuff that comes on the orange strip. So here we are, back to full speed ahead. And with this, it can be overwhelming because the circle of tissue paper is really, really big. And so you just want to kind of refold it so that you get it down into a manageable little bunch. And that's pretty easy. And then, like, I just put some glue on that base, and then I just, once you start sticking one end of the tissue paper into the glue, it starts to stick and hold still, and then you can position it so that the other strips, so that the rest of the strip can sit in that glue. And like having your circles already cut and already glue on them really helps this. So then, as you saw, I just pushed it down, and I was pretty messy with it because I want this to have a really messy look. And so you see that it didn't really matter that it didn't line up and it wasn't perfectly even or anything, because I'm making it pretty squished down anyways. And so I'm just squishing it as the glue dries so that the glue will dry holding everything in place in a squished and wrinkled kind of way. And I just used a second circle to do that so that I didn't burn my fingers. And so now here you're getting a sneak peek of one of the other projects I made. I made this ruffled flower as well, but I'm not going to show you that in this particular video. So you'll have to check out my channel for another video that includes that ruffled flower, which I really quite love. But I just wanted to show you how I stuck one of those vellum word stickers onto a piece of white cardstock and just cut it out to make it into a little regular sticker instead of being see-through. And now I have my Stampin' Up! Heart to Heart punch, and it just punches 3 hearts at once. It's an older Stampin' Up! Stamp, and I had to pull back that sticker. It's not actually a sticker, it's that little phrase that I made with the sticker from the Freckled Fawn mixed media kit. I just had to pull that up so that I could stick that extra heart underneath. And that, again, is one of the hearts that I punched from the Stampin' Up! Heart to Heart punch. And now, just to deepen the color of this heart, I decided to coat the entire heart in glossy accents. It would have been much easier to get a really nice, shiny look if I had coated that in glossy accents before I had stuck the A Beautiful Day little strip in place, because that made it a little bit difficult to get the glue the way that I wanted it. But you live and you learn, and I wasn't really planning out how I was going to do this. Like most things that I do, I wasn't really planning. So I did the best that I could, and I do really like how it turned out. It's a nice deeper orange now, which provides a little bit more contrast with the pattern of the tissue paper below. So I have this 3x3 photo of my cats in my scrap room, and I'm starting with that photo I just trimmed it to have a little small border around it, a small white border, and a white piece of cardstock for my background. And now I'm in my yellow and orange drawer, and I'm picking out anything that has orange that I think might look cute with that photo, which has some nice warm tones in it. Now I'm in my blues, and I'm looking for some turquoise or bluey greeny color. I guess it might be more of a mint actually, but it's kind of like a turquoisey mint. And I'm looking for that color because of the word strip on the embellishment that I'm using. It has that turquoisey minty green. I think it's probably more of a mint green. I always have trouble with where green begins and turquoise ends. Those two colors are tricky for me. So I have this piece of scrap paper. I used all scraps for this project. So this is a piece of basic gray scrap paper just from my black and white scrap drawer. And I'm just trimming it down so that it provides a mat for my photo. And what I love about this paper is that it's black and white, and it has also a beige stripe in it. And that beige stripe just warms up that black and white paper and makes it look nice and warm. And it picks up on the nice warm tones in my cat in the photos. My cats are a pretty color of cream and brown. And now this pattern paper is from Crepe Paper. It's from Craft Market, and this one is from Lucky Charm from Dear Lizzie. And then that orange one with the words on it that I skipped over, I didn't narrate, that is from Amy Tangerine from Ready Set Go. So all of these are fairly old pattern papers that I just picked based on their colors from my scrap drawers. You saw me grab from my green scrap drawer, from my orange scrap drawer, and also I grabbed some black and whites. I think I pulled them off screen, but I brought them all in from my black and white scrap drawer. Now I want to add something fairly bold to this, but that black and white striped paper that I have there now, that's from Fancy Pants. It's one of my favorite papers ever, but it's too bold. I would rather have it be white with black stripes on it than black with white stripes. So I'm looking for some alternative that's just as bold, but that is more white and less black. So I couldn't find it from the scraps that I had already picked. So what I'm doing now is I'm just going off to my scrap drawer, and I'm looking for another one of those, another black and white paper. I couldn't find one in my scrap drawer that was black with white stripes, like kind of, I was just looking for the exact opposite. So I went to my 12 by 12 paper and did have to cut into a 12 by 12 piece. This is Felicity Jane paper from their black and white kit that you can get. It's not a kit, it's like a black and white collection pack of papers. And so that really provides a hit of black for a little bit of contrast in this. It keeps it from being too soft, but because it's not so black, it's not weighing it down the way that other pattern paper was. Now this is a strip of the tissue paper that I had run through my crimper, and I'm going to show a video where I just show all of these things that I did with the tissue paper in a separate technique video. So if you want to see how a crimper works, if you're not familiar with one, it's a fairly old craft supply, and I'll show that in that video. So keep an eye out for that if you're interested in a crimper. Crimper puts a very subtle texture in your paper. So I just took a strip off of the crimped paper, and now one of the things that I was really excited about when I got this tissue paper was the idea of using the back side of it, because you see how it gives this lovely subtle print, and this print of course matches perfectly, like it coordinates perfectly with the print that's in the floral embellishment that I'm using, but also with the strips that are above and below at the top and bottom of the background paper. So it's kind of like, it's perfect because it's not as busy as using the front side of the pattern would be. The front side would just be way too busy, and it would also give a real matchy look, which I don't really want on this particular project. So what I'm doing here is I'm just compensating for the fold in the tissue paper. So there was a little bit of a fold there, and I wanted it to kind of lay flat, although as you can see, not really flat. I wanted it crumpled up, and I folded the fold backwards to basically make it neutral. And then I crumpled it all up because I just really like the look of that, especially with tissue paper. And now that gives me a really beautiful background layer here. Oh, I love how it looks. So now I've just grabbed the stamp that comes in the Freckled Fawn Mixed Media Kit, and I've placed it on a block, and now I'm grabbing my Lawn Fundamentals premium dye ink pad, which I have in the color Narwhal, and which is a really warm, beautiful, soft gray. And I really like the warmth of it, and it picks up on the neutral color of the leaves in the patterned tissue paper. Now, before I go too much further, I realized I better glue all these layers down. So I'm starting at the top, and I'm just putting a little bit of glue down and then pressing the layers together layer by layer. So I wanted more of the blue showing on that one. So now this orange piece of paper, it's a very beautiful subtle orange and pink pattern that is from the Craft Market collection from Crepe Paper. I felt like it needed a little something. My thread broke there. It was just the tension was a little off, I think, on my machine. But I fixed it up, and now I'm going to put several runs of straight stitching horizontally across this strip of paper, and that just adds a little bit of subtle texture without interrupting the pattern too much. It's just white thread and just going over and over and over again, and that will just add a little bit of interest between my layers. It was feeling a little bit too much like there were just a whole bunch of pieces of paper together, and I just wanted something to separate them a little bit. So now I'm just experimenting here with this stamp and seeing how easy or difficult it is to line it up, to do some duplicates, like some kind of like butt up against each other stamping to make this stamp look like it's a larger pattern than it actually is. And basically I want to be able to extend the pattern. Now my idea here is that my journaling will sit on the little ledges that these scallops make, but I kind of had the idea, I started journaling in my pen and I'm just using a scrap paper to try out the look and slipping it behind my layers just to see how it would look if it were on the background. Then I thought I might want to use some Mini Market letter stickers. So I picked out the two colors that are prominent in this layout, which are the peachy color. These are pink with the peachy colored letter in them, and also the blue aqua-y minty color. So I'm just spelling out Lila and Chloe, and absolutely I love how it looks. So I only got that far and realized, yep, I like this. I don't have to check. I don't have to really think about what I'm going to put here. I'm pretty sure I'm going to like something there in that with those letters and sitting on that stamping. So I'm going to pull out my Misty tool, which is a stamp positioning tool, and I have the big 12 by 12 one here today. And I think that this is the perfect opportunity to use this stamp positioning tool. So you see what I did there? I just kind of positioned it, and then I realized that my paper wasn't down properly. So you need to position your background paper so that it is flush against the bottom corner, like the bottom left corner, and then I'm figuring out where I want my journaling to be, and then I'm going to pick up the stamp, and then I can take out that, I'm basically using that scrap paper as like a template for my stamping, and then I'm just making sure that my paper is still lined up, and now I'm just going to ink up that stamp. And the nice thing about using the Misty is that if I mis-stamp this by accident, like if it comes out blotchy or not quite dark enough, it turns out that it's perfectly stamped, so I don't have to fix it. But if there were any gaps in my stamping, I could just re-ink it and reapply it without worrying about getting any ghost images or anything like that. So speaking of ghost images, I'm just going to take the extra ink off of this stamp using that scrap, and then I'm going to position it so that it is lined up with the image that's already there, and then I'm just going to re-ink that stamp up again and stamp this one right beside it, and it lines up perfectly because I used the tool to make sure that that would happen. And now I can just keep on going back and forth and comparing where my stamping is and where I want my layers to go, and make sure that the stamping ends up being exactly on my background where I want it to be. And as this ink dries, it dries to a beautiful warm shade of gray. Like I found when I first stamped it, it was looking darker, and it kind of evened out. It was looking a little splotchy and dark on this cardstock in particular, but it evened out and lightened up as it dried, and really beautiful. Now that one is a little crooked, but it's entirely covered by the layer, so it really doesn't matter. I was really just using that stamp for consistency, like so that the piece that sticks out on the left side is going to be mostly lined up with the pieces that are sticking out on the right side. So I didn't really have to stamp under these, but I just wanted it to look like it was all one stamp, and so by extending them, it helps it look that way. Now I am going to put a bit of a gap here just because I can just eyeball it now and know that they're lined up, and it doesn't have to be absolutely perfect anyways, because it just doesn't. So now again, I must not have done a great job of cleaning my stamp the past 2 times because I left those ghost images, but that's okay because like I said, the Misty tool helps you make sure that you're stamping in exactly the same spot anyways. So now my stamping on my background is done, and you guys, if you follow me on my channel, you know that I don't do a whole lot of stamping on my backgrounds, and so this was really fun for me, and it really made me realize that now that I have the 12x12 Misty tool, there's really no reason to not do stuff like this more often, so you might see more of this from me coming up. Now that my background is stamped on and has the tissue paper on the top and on the bottom, I've decided to add some sewing along the top and the bottom as well. And I'm not sure when my bobbin is going to run out on me, so I want to put several layers of stitching just like I did on that orange paper and that horizontal orange strip that runs across. So I want this to look similar. So I'm just doing as many as I can, and I'm going back, I'm alternating between the two so that if I run out, they're gonna still look pretty even. And I ended up not running out. I did two strips along the top and 3 strips along the bottom. And you'll notice that I put a slightly larger piece of tissue paper along the bottom than the top, and that's usually what I do when I'm putting a band across the top and bottom. I almost always make my band wider at the bottom just to anchor the page. Also, you'll notice that my cluster and the background stamping are not in the center of this page. They're in the bottom third and or third-ish. And that is just for that rule of thirds for I just find it looks a little bit more pleasing to have things fall on thirds on the paper, on the background. And now that I've got the sewing in place, I can crumple up the edges of the tissue paper, which was one of the greatest things about using tissue paper, is having that kind of crumpled up look. And now I took some of this Coats upholstery thread, and Coats upholstery thread in general is just a thread that is thicker, and I like to use it because it keeps its circular shape from the spool, and it just is easy to make messy bundles that aren't quite so messy. They stay really loopy. So I took one of those extra, I just grabbed a punch of scrap paper, just using a circle punch, and I sandwiched it. So I put adhesive on the back of the rosette and then adhesive on the punch, and I sandwiched it so that those 2 punches hold that little bundle of circular thread in place. And now I did put some foam adhesive, it's from Scotch, and I put it on the back of the tissue paper, and that just helps lift the tissue paper up off the project so that it casts a really nice shadow. And now I'm going to spell out Lila and Chloe, which I already have the letters picked out for Lila, and I also already had the ampersand. I decided to put the ampersand up beside Lila, and I'm just designing this as I go. I didn't use wax paper to figure out how to space it because I've only got so much room to work with, so I feel like I can probably just try to make it work on the fly. I'm winging it. I'm living on the edge today and just kind of scrapping as I go. So there's Lila and Chloe, and at this point, I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to write, so I decide to say Scrap Pals. So I was a little bit concerned that I wouldn't have room for the word scrap, so I stuck it really under the orange and pink pattern paper. Oh my goodness, I love that orange and pink pattern paper. It's the one that's a horizontal strip. It's from Craft Market. My goodness, that pattern is just so beautiful. I love a feminine geometric pattern. It's very, very pretty. So then I just took an eye and cut it and put it sideways. Like I cut it and overlapped it so that it was shorter than an eye. And then I put it sideways to look like a dash. So it says Lila and Chloe dash Scrap Pals. And that's actually not my title. It's my caption. I'm adding a silver sparkly enamel dot, which picks up on the gray stamping on the background. So I want to bring some gray into this. So far there is no gray. The leaves have like a dark browny, greeny color to them. It's like a greenish brown or a brown with green undertones, but it's very warm as well. Now these are Freckled Fawn rubber letter stickers, and they're in my stash. You can buy them in the shop separate, like as a separate purchase from your kit. And I don't know if they have that particular font in stock, but they almost always have some rubber font letter stickers, and I just really love them. They're really, really great. So I'm not entirely sure what I'm going to call it, but I thought the word cats fits so well there. I needed something there because there was that gap above the rosette. And so it's going to be something about cats. So I'm really winging it today because I don't even know what my title is as I'm putting the letters on the project. And at first I thought I would make the S kind of have the word like be circular, kind of like to follow the circle of the rosette, but later on I'm going to change it so that it's not, so that the S doesn't look like it's going downhill like that. It just looks a little off balance or off kilter because the C wasn't rounded enough. And now I finally came up with a title. I'm going to call it Gotta Love Those Cats or Gotta Love Them Cats. As I'm composing it, I'm thinking, is it going to be them or those? Because I think Gotta Love Them Cats is a little bit more casual sounding. It rolls off the tongue a little bit better. And it just sounds more like it's the way it should be, but I keep it's one of those things where if you say a word over and over and over again, it kind of starts to lose its meaning to you. And that happened. I was like, is it gotta love that, gotta love them, gotta love those. And I just got to the point that I just had to choose something and I went with those. Because I think it's more grammatically correct, but I think Gotta Love Them Cats sounds a little bit better. So I thought about doing it like this, which completely throws off the balance. So then I decided my first impression was that I would put a little something up here in the corner. So it makes sense to make Gotta Love be the something that ends up in that corner. So I'm taking more of that gorgeous, yummy, feminine geometric print. Oh, I love that. It reminds me of a vintage fabric. So pretty. And more of this back side of the tissue paper, and more of this Felicity Jane black and white paper. No, that's not going to make it, I guess. No, it's not. But I am going to take a little strip of this Amy Tangerine paper. And right now that Amy Tangerine paper is matting that feminine geometric print, but it's not always going to be like that. And now I'm thinking about what enamel dots I could use as an ellipse. I wanted to say Gotta Love ... those cats. So here I am ready to put this down. So I'm mirroring what I did in the other layers, just with less of them, because it would be too bulky if I put everything up in the top. So I'm just taking the main highlights from the main cluster and repeating them up here. Now that was looking a little bit too planned or contrived or perfect or something. So I just cut the strip off the top of that Amy Tangerine orange paper so that it looks a little bit more casual. I'm putting that ellipse in enamel dots. Those are from my Mind's Eye, I think. Yes, they're from my Mind's Eye, the On Trend 2 collection. And it's not an exactly perfect match, but it's pretty darn close. So I really like how it looks like it's just a continuation of the love, dot, dot, dot. So that's good. And now I'm just gluing all of those things together, and I'm allowing the paper to hang off the edge. And oh, I'm going to mess a little bit with this gata because it's not quite sticking to the paper. It's sticking okay to the tissue paper, but it's not sticking all that well to the patterned paper. And I thought I would mirror the bundle of thread from the bottom cluster, so I had to stick some thread in there. So I'm adding a whole bunch more adhesive so that it can sandwich the bundle of thread in place and still stick to the layout. So what I've decided to do is use a bit of this foam tape and stick it so that, of course, those letters are kind of half on the pattern paper and half hanging off. So I just stuck the foam adhesive so that it was kind of tucked under the paper, and then it holds the letters in place and holds the space behind the letters as well. So that works well. And now I'm just taking the other word that says those. I really probably should have called it them. I guess it doesn't really matter. Gotta love those cats. So now I'm going to head over to my embellishment drawer and pull out some of my die cut pieces that I have sorted by color. And I'm pulling out my orange ones, and I'm pulling out my turquoise ones, and I'm also going to pull out my gray and black ones. Now, what you see there, I haven't zoomed out yet, but what you saw me looking at there were the vellum stickers that came in or washi strips that came in the Freckled Fawn Mixed Media Kit. And I decided against using them because I thought if I were to put them in anywhere, it would just look like more layers of pattern paper. And I really don't want more layers here of paper anyways, of flat paper. I want some interesting shapes that I can stick in. So I found these gray Redeem coupons that I have in little strips. I'm going to zoom out very shortly. So there we go. So it says redeem for one small favor. And so I put one in the top left-hand corner of my photo embellishment cluster and one in the bottom left, kind of just under the rosette, and then one up here above Gata. And then I thought about putting it so that it extends, but it just looks too freakishly long. No tickets are that long, so I just didn't like it. It wasn't sitting right there. So now I'm taking these Heidi Swap. These are an acrylic, but they're a little bit see-through, plasticky acrylic hearts. I guess they're probably not acrylic, they're acetate is a better word for them. And they're like a dull, it shouldn't say dull, but they're kind of like a soft gray color, and they're a warm gray. So it picks up on the warm gray that I have elsewhere in the layout. So I had to cut it because it wasn't fitting down there properly, and I'm just using my Tombow Mono Multi adhesive to put those in place. And when I glue this one in place, it will also further glue. I just added a big squirt of Tombow Mono Multi behind the rosette, and it holds both the thread in place a little bit better and also the heart. Now I'm putting a third heart right here just to fill this little gap. There was a gap between the L in Lila and then the S in cats and E in those. So there was just that little gap there that needed a little something in it. So that heart provides a background for what's going to go there. And then there will also be that little orange circular thing that I think is from October Afternoon. It's a circular die cut, not a thing. So these die cuts, again, I took them out from my die cut storage, which I keep my die cuts stored by color. Now, my stapler is having a hard time going through that piece of acetate because it is quite a thick, stiff, it's somewhere between a plastic and an acetate, those hearts. And so I just moved the staple over a little bit. But the one thing that happened is that I covered almost all of that ticket, that gray ticket that it was there for a specific reason, to bring that gray up and to also kind of tie in with the tickets that are elsewhere in the project. So I just added a second ticket behind it and it was just the little edge of a ticket, as you can tell, because of the way that the layers went. So I'm putting some circles every here and there, and circles are nice because they soften up the corners of layers, and also that little tab that I put up above Gata also softens things because it has so many soft circular rounded edges on it. Now I really like this Today arrow. It's from Simple Stories, and it's one of those plasticized paper clips. I really like it, and I'm looking to bring a little tiny bit more blue into the embellishments. So that's why I took that today, and I also grabbed another one of those October afternoon circular journaling pieces. And so I thought about, I feel like I need just to do a little something else up here, but I don't want it to be too heavy looking. So this little banner, I don't even know who makes it, but it's a little banner from my turquoise die cut bin, and there are my boxes right there where I keep my die cuts, and it's just perfect because it has just that hint of turquoise in the lines from the lined paper, but it's still light and airy because it's mostly the beige. Now I would like to put some sprinkles on this, and so I'm just looking at my samples of mist, and I decided that the gray in my sample that worked the best on this project is Mr. Huey's Silver. So I took out Mr. Huey's Silver. I only have a tiny little bit of it left. This might be one of the last projects I get to make with this mist. I'm just cutting off some packaging. I just keep my my stray packaging. I don't throw it in the garbage. I could just put it in a drawer in my scrap room, and I'm just cutting it to shape so that it can cover my photos and titles so that I don't get any sprinkles on them. I'm just flicking the mist with the dropper, with the nozzle, and I'm kind of following a diagonal shape when I do so, but I want the mist to look like it comes out from the center of the project. I don't want it to look like it's coming from the edges. So that's why I started with the nozzle over my project and then just allow the flicks of mist to flick out onto the outside. So now you get to see it up close. Look at how pretty that tissue paper looks at the top. It's just so, I love the pattern so much. It's such a beautiful feminine pattern. And here's what all these layers look like. This layout, on this layout, I did more layering than what I usually do in terms of sticking those little embellishments in and all of the papers. And I really had fun with it. And the stamping on the background just perfects it and really gives the caption a place to live. I love how it looks like the caption is sitting on a little ledge there. So next you'll see some close-ups of this project. So make sure that you check out all of the photos that are coming up. If you're interested in buying a Freckled Fawn mixed media kit for yourself, please use the link that I include in the information section below. It helps to support me in that I get a percentage of the sales. And you don't pay anything extra by following that link. You still pay the regular price. So thank you so much for watching. Take care and have a really great scrappy week.